Are you ready for rapid fire?
I haven't had a rapid fire in over a week. I'm having rapid fire withdrawals at this point. So I am very fired up for some rapid fire today.
All right. Excellent. Fired up for rapid fire. Fill in the blank. It is blank that Notre Dame wide receiver Jaden Greathouse has switched his jersey to number 1 this season.
It's clearly Salty Virginia Peanuts' idea that Notre Dame wide receiver Jaden Greathouse has switched his jersey to number 1 this season. I did find that to be very interesting that he is going to be wearing number 1. 19 never seemed to fit him, in my opinion. I don't know. I believe he was 9 in high school, which I think is why he went to 19. And, of course, 9 is taken offensively at Notre Dame by a certain tight end. And so apparently he just decided instead of shaving off the 1 to become 9, he shaved off the 9 to become 1. So, okay, let's go. Jaden Greathouse, let's go, number 1.
And I love it because I think the last Notre Dame player to wear number 1, besides that stupid season where they were trying to go game to game. Remember when?
I know who this is. Trivia time. Is it Derek Mays?
No.
Oh, it's not.
But he's probably the last Notre Dame wide receiver to do it. Lewis
I
Nix.
thought that's what you said.
Lewis Nix wore it for a year. Do you remember that?
He
the year after, and I think it was 2013, he wore number 1.
I remember
that year. I'm pretty sure he's the last
receiver.
Notre Dame player. No.
Okay.
I may have mistakenly said wide receiver, but I meant to say Notre Dame player, period.
Well,
like
John Baptiste had it last year.
Did he? You're right. I forgot. Totally forgot about that.
But I don't think anybody on offense has had it in a long time. So that's
right.
That's
and it's been treated because of that. It's been treated with sort of, like the trophy of numbers, basically.
Yes. I agree.
And I'm
with that.
glad to see with all these guys going to single digits and stuff like that,
right?
That we're going to get, someone's finally going to wear number 1. Like I've been wanting to see it. And now we're going to see it. And I think that Jaden Greathouse might be the perfect guy to do it.
Look, if he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver, why not wear the number? I mean, let's go. They have instituted, obviously, 0. Braden Lindsay was the first one to wear 0. And before that, you're right. I don't think I'm kind of sifting through the rosters here over the past numerous seasons. And I think you are 100% accurate that the last person to wear number 1 was it was a little further back than that. I'm at 16. When was he on the team?
Lewis Nix?
Yeah.
He would have been like 11, 12.
Oh, is it that far back?
Range? Yeah.
Greg Bryant as a running back had it. He was the last offensive player in 2014 to wear number 1.
Forgot about Bryant. Matt was guessing George Atkinson.
Yes.
Yeah, I forgot about.
And then the year before, it was Greg Bryant and Lewis Nix that wore it. So there you go, 2013. Okay. So, but yes, I'm excited about it. I think that's great.
Yeah. Not that a number, matters that much, but I think it's going to be.
It matters.
A wide receiver, like number 1, definitely seems like a wide receiver number to me.
100%. And I mean, look, no one can look at Jordan Faison in number 80 and see it wrapped around him and think that's a better looking number than 5 or 6. He's going to be 6 now. He's going to be a single digit. Like, no one can look at that and be like, yes, 80 is what you should have stayed with. Don't change to 6. No, he looks better in a single digit. And I agree. I think Jaden Greathouse looks better in 1 than he does in 19.
I concur.
Yeah.
Completely concur. Big frame, fast, all that.
Man. He's going to make 1 look real good.
Perfect.
That's for sure. He's going to make 1 look real good for the next couple of years.
Perfect fit. I agree. So Clemson transfer Beaux Collins says he brings explosiveness and big-time plays to Notre Dame. Chris Tyree averaged 18.6 yards per catch last season, which was the top number for any Irish receiver who had at least 20 receptions on last year's team. Do you buy or sell Beaux Collins topping that number this year?
I will sell it. I need to see it to believe it. And I'm not saying that Beaux Collins isn't a good player, because he is a good player. And my mind is definitely clouded by the fact that when I was at camp at Notre Dame last week up in the upstairs area, where the media usually sits. That's where they had the parents. And then on the big screen, they kept on a loop the Notre Dame Clemson game, the most recent one that was at home. That's not the most recent. The most recent Clemson home game that Notre Dame just, wiped the floor with them. And Beaux Collins was a no-show basically in that game. And so that's my most recent memory of Beaux Collins, was him just getting absolutely shut down by Notre Dame secondary a couple of years ago. So it's a sell for me. I think the ball is going to be spread out a little bit more. Maybe that helps that number get a little bit bigger because he won't have as many opportunities. That's definitely a possibility. But I don't know. I just don't think of Beaux Collins and think big plays. I think he could, be a possession guy. He could do a lot of different things. He's going to help this team, obviously. Is he going to be the number one guy? Maybe. I just think there's just a lot to be figured out before I'm ready to anoint him the big play receiver at Notre Dame.
Yeah, it still feels like Chris Mitchell is more in that mold of the big play type guy than Beaux Collins. But, Collins he's got 3 years of playing experience, and he's averaged, around 14.5 per catch in that time. He had the one season 2 years ago where he averaged around 17 yards per reception. But, he has had some long plays, like pretty much every wide receiver will at some point during the season. But he, I don't know, like, being a possession guy, maybe it's probably going too far to say he's going to be that kind of guy. But at the same time, I just like over 17, 18, I don't see it. I see like maybe, like a 16.5, 17 kind of is the ceiling that I would put him at for this season. So I'm going to sell it as well.
There we go.
Still think he's going to be a big part of the offense, but I don't think he's necessarily going to be that kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Fill in the blank. Fighting Irish head coach Marcus Freeman taking his family to the WWE Smackdown in Chicago over the weekend. Is blank.
It's confusing. I don't know what else to say.
You ever been to a pro wrestling event?
Not in person. I tried to watch one on TV when I was in high school, and I was bored to tears. But he took his entire family, all 6 kids and his wife, and they're sitting there in the front row. So I don't know how that went down. I don't know if he lost a bet. I don't know what exactly happened there, but he had that's some FFF right there, forced family fun at its finest right there. But I give him credit for doing that. Somebody in the family obviously wanted to go. I can't imagine it was Marcus Freeman.
You know what? Well, maybe it was Marcus. His wife really looked into it from the photos that I saw.
I know
online.
Maybe it was her.
But it was like it looked like they were front row from the pictures as well. So it's like, hey, if it's nationally televised, Marcus Freeman should just go to everything because he'll be right there. He'll get the best seats in the house. They'll put him on TV. It's great for Marcus Freeman. It's great for Notre Dame. It's great for the family.
It was only in Chicago, so it wasn't like they all got on a plane, or maybe they did. I don't know. But like that's a pretty quick jaunt over to Chicago, do that. But somebody
must have wanted to go though, right?
Somebody.
Like one of the kids, two of the kids. I don't know.
I don't know his oldest son that well. Obviously, he's a really, really good actual wrestler as opposed to the fake wrestling of WWE. Maybe he's into it. Maybe his younger kids are into it. I don't know, but he's like, hey, if we're going, we're all going. I do like that part. I think that's fantastic.
I know. But like when I was, I would have been a couple years older than him. Like we went to, this was like late 80s. We went to a big it was WWF still back then, but down in Wichita, Kansas at, I think it was the Memorial Coliseum, maybe something like whatever it was. Like we went and we were like 10 rows back. I don't know how we got such good seats because it wasn't even like you could buy stuff online. We had great seats, like 10 or 12 rows back. So we were right there. It was pretty cool. It was fun, but that is the one and only time I've ever been to a pro wrestling.
I look at it maybe like hockey. Like I'm not going to watch hockey on TV, but I really enjoy going to hockey games. So maybe it's something like that, like a race, like a NASCAR race. They put me to sleep watching them on TV to a degree, but in person, they are a blast. I've always loved going to NASCAR races. So, maybe it's something like that.
Michael says that Freeman's into wrestling. His best friend is James Laurinaitis, whose dad is a big-time wrestler. I believe wasn't Laurinaitis' dad one of the Road Warriors, like Hawk and do you remember? Like, I know that
you got me on that one.
Into wrestling. I think that his dad was one of the Road Warriors, if I remember.
So Michael, are you saying for a fact that he's into wrestling and then there's just a connection there? Or is it like, my best friend's dad was an accountant. I'm not going to watch him, add up a tally sheet. Yeah. So it's like
Hawk and Animal. That's who it was.
Okay.
Sloppy Joe says his dad was Animal. That's right. Road Warriors was kind of back in my day, back when you had Hawk and tag team.
Back when it was real.
That's right. The Animal. I forgot about that. Well, but so maybe
hey,
I don't know. Hey,
maybe it is.
A lot of people watch that stuff. The place was packed, So
that it was. There's still an appetite for it because it's still on TV. They still pack arenas. Yep.
But like Joe said, great publicity. Like I said, just go to every nationally televised event that you can go to if you're Marcus.
There was no Notre Dame game on, obviously.
Get you on TV.
So I'm surprised we didn't see him at the swim trials at Indianapolis.
We've got swim trials coming up here in rapid fire in a few minutes. First, though, Jeff Jackson, Notre Dame hockey coach, announced his retirement today. 20 years at Notre Dame. He's going to coach one more year.
Yep.
This will be his 21st and final season at Notre Dame. It's like, man, you sit back and think about it. This guy has been around for a while now. But I guess, what do you think about Jeff Jackson retiring? And what do you think about this succession plan that they've got in place? Associate head coach and former Notre Dame player Brock Sheehan, who graduated from Notre Dame in 2008, is going to be the next head coach after Jeff Jackson steps down after next season.
There are a lot of things I think about this particular situation. Number one, look, Jeff Jackson brought Notre Dame hockey back to relevance as far as hockey is concerned in collegiate athletics. He guided them through multiple conference changes and things like that. They were in the Big East, I want to say. Then they went to Hockey East, and then they're in the Big Ten. They've been bouncing all over the place.
CCHA, not the Big East.
CCHA, that's what it was.
CCHA, yeah.
Thank you. I couldn't remember what the original conference that they were in, but then they went to Hockey East, which is like the old school, bang 'em, hockey conference, and then back to the Big Ten. And they've had success everywhere they've been since he's been here. And he was the head coach when they built Compton. And that is a absolutely gorgeous facility for hockey. And it is buzzing almost all the time with either local teams or Notre Dame. The Blackhawks come and work out here. That's a huge deal. And he was the head coach that was here when all of that went down. So you've got to give him some credit as well. There's actually hockey camp going on today as we speak, which I thought was very interesting timing of the announcement.
Yeah, no
but
kidding.
It's, he should be applauded for everything he was able to do at Notre Dame. Took him to the Frozen Four a few times. Never got over the hump, obviously, to win a national title. And so maybe that's what the next guy will be able to do. But a lot of credit has to go to Jeff Jackson. He kept Notre Dame in the conversation for a long period of time.
Jeff Jackson, he's a little bit like Gene Hackman to me because, and I don't mean this as a shot, but Jeff Jackson, I look, he's 69 years old. He's basically looked 65 for the entirety of his tenure
he has
at Notre Dame. He has looked the exact, like I said, like Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman when he was 35 and Gene Hackman when he was 65. You couldn't tell the difference if you saw photos of him, right? That's a little bit like Jeff Jackson. But, the guy is obviously a winner. He won 2 national championships when he was at Lake Superior State before coming to Notre Dame. Got Notre Dame, which was basically kind of a stale, hockey program, got him to the national championship game in his 3rd season, runner-up a couple of different times, 4 Frozen Fours. Just a fantastic career that he's had at Notre Dame. And that's why it does seem like a little bit of a shock because he just felt like a guy who was just going to kind of maybe, keep this thing plucking along forever. They've missed the NCAA tournament the last couple of years. So, not sure maybe how that comes into his thinking and that kind of thing. But I like the succession thing. And I like the fact that you're going to have a Notre Dame guy taking it over and Brock Sheehan, a guy who's been with the program, obviously played for Jeff Jackson and has coached under Jeff Jackson the last couple of years as well. So it's good that they've got a plan in place.
Yeah.
With Brock Sheehan.
It'll be interesting because, as you and I figured out when we were kind of doing a deep dive into the staff, I've had a lot of correspondence back and forth with Paul Pooley, who has been right there next to Jeff since he got here 20 years ago.
And Slaggert. Yep.
And those guys, all three of those guys are, they're closer to retirement than they are at the beginning of their careers. I'll just say that. Right. And they tabbed the young guy on the staff, the 08 graduate, as the next guy, which I find to be very interesting, right? And so they're making a point to go younger.
Much younger.
So,
yeah.
Is he going to retain anybody on his staff? Are all three of those guys going to be like, hey, it was a great run, let's go out together? So it'll be interesting to see what Notre Dame looks like a year from now, from a coaching staff perspective and all of that. But what a great opportunity for Slaggert to walk into. I mean, as your first head coaching gig, to be the Sheehan, excuse me, Sheehan. I did this before we started the show.
I know.
Too.
We were talking before the show, and you got all the names confused.
I got them all mixed around.
No, that's not Pooley. That's not.
They got them all mixed around. But what a great opportunity for him in his first head coaching gig to be at the University of Notre Dame in that beautiful arena and the team, the roster that he already has. It's not a rebuild by any stretch of the imagination. So he's got a great opportunity in front of him.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, though. They've already been in the Big Ten in hockey since the 17-18 season. It seems like just yesterday, literally,
I know
that they were moved into the Big Ten. But remember, they were just running roughshod over the Big Ten that first year. They won the Big Ten in their first season in the conference, which I'm sure made everybody in the Big Ten very happy that Notre Dame comes in and just runs over everybody. But unfortunately, they haven't had a Big Ten championship since. But remember, that was the last time they finished runner-up in the NCAA, that 2018 season. So just a great run. Hopefully they kind of go out on a high note. That'd be awesome to see them get back into the tournament, make a little Frozen Four run, and maybe finish things off the right way for Jeff Jackson. So, but a great handoff still as well.
Yeah, I mean, they got a plan. That's awesome.
Yep. A big Olympic week for a Notre Dame alum as well. And this one kind of came out of the blue when I saw this one popping up. Really didn't hear about this story. Chris Giuliano, Notre Dame alum, at the Olympic swim trials, which were right down the road in Indianapolis, at the football stadium. They built an Olympic swimming pool inside the football stadium. 2 pools.
Yeah, because it was a warm-up pool, and then there was the actual competition pool. So they built 2 full-size pools in the football stadium. Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Chris Giuliano goes nuts. He becomes the first United States man to qualify for the Olympics in the 50, the 100, and 200 freestyle since Matt Biondi in 1988. There's a
which
name.
Also puts him on both sprint relays.
On the relays as well.
Yeah. 5 events.
Yeah.
He
was the number 28 seed and finished second in the 200 freestyle finals.
Talk about bringing your best when it matters.
Yeah. No
He'll be take a couple days off and get ready for the Olympics because it's a bigger stage and it'll be something.
Were you watching? I saw a lot of this on Twitter over the week. Were you watching any of the swimming Olympic?
We turned it on about every other day, probably, because a lot of it was in prime time, some of the finals and things like that. I know it's impossible to do. It's absolutely impossible to do is to have like all the finals on one night. Like you can't do that. It's not physiologically possible for a lot of these guys and gals that are in multiple events, right? So you can't do that. So it would be like they would have a finals, and then they would have 2 semifinals, and then they would have another semifinal, and then they would have a finals. And so it was hard to kind of keep track of, but I wasn't trying to keep track of it either. You know what I mean? But it was exciting. Like it was a packed house, number one. Like I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, what a huge crowd to be cheering on these swimmers and things of that nature. And I heard nothing. I had some colleagues that went down there for the event, and they had nothing but amazing things to say about it. They allowed high school kids the week prior to the trials compete in a meet, a couple of day long meet, to like test everything out. Okay. And so they had those kids up on the big screen, and they were doing like they treated it exactly like the USA trials for these high school kids, which I thought was a really cool experience for those high school kids. You know what I mean?
Kidding. No kidding.
So that was really cool. So yeah, it was first class all the way. In Indiana swimming is really, really good. And there's a bunch of Indiana swimmers on the USA swim team, which is really cool. A lot of young people. There's 2 sets of siblings on the team, and I believe one set of siblings is from the Indianapolis area, went to Carmel, that kind of deal. And there's 4, 5, or 6 Indiana swimmers on the USA team. So pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool. I wonder, because like the College World Series is going on right now, and I know at least the last few Olympic trials, they had been doing it in Omaha, right down there where the college. So I don't know if like because of the timing of the Olympics and they needed to have the trials this weekend, and that's why they did it in Indianapolis.
Exactly what happened. Yeah,
because obviously with hotels and stuff like that, you couldn't do both the trials and a big event like the College World Series at the same time in a city as small as Omaha. But I mean, just everything that you heard coming out of Indianapolis, building these pools and doing the whole thing, as successful as it was, like maybe the swim trials end up in Indianapolis going forward. I don't know.
It's going to be interesting. I know, obviously they're going to have to rebuild the pool every year if they want to do it in Indianapolis, which I'm sure they can do.
If you're packing them in a football stadium for the swim trials, I think you can afford to do that if you want to, right?
That's absolutely true. There's actually a high school in Fort Wayne that purchased the pool that they built at Lucas Oil, and they're going to transport that pool to Fort Wayne and then build a building around it.
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so Sloppy Joe says Omaha's like 500,000 people. Yeah, I mean, but that's relatively not that big. When you're talking about hotels and the whole thing. When you're talking about 2 big events like the College World Series and the Olympic trials at the same time, there's just not enough hotel rooms in a city.
Right. And if you're trying to compete with the College World Series and the Olympic, like I said, with the high school deal that they did and the Olympic trials that they did, like you're talking almost a month's worth of time. You know what I mean? When you're talking about hotels and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a long period of time that they needed.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as Giuliano, this Notre Dame guy, I believe he qualified. Yeah. He finished first in the 100 freestyle final. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy with, as well as he did, he's got to go into Paris as like a gold medal contender.
Sure.
It seems like with the kind of trials that he had. So that's awesome. That's awesome for a Notre Dame guy like that to have the weekend that he had down there in Indianapolis. So hopefully, I know, you and I, like, I didn't watch the trials because Canadian TV, which I'll get to here in a bit. Obviously, the U.S. trials were not on.
They were not on the Canadian TV.
They were not on the Canadian TV up there, the U.S. Olympic swim trials. But so I didn't watch nearly as much of that. I watched the Olympics. I don't even if the trials, even if I had been here, probably wouldn't have spent as much time. Like, I watched the Olympics themselves, but the
The trials
Olympic
is a
trials
little different. Yeah.
not as
I hear you. Like I said, we turned it on kind of in the background at times when I was doing some other work and like things like that. But we've talked about this numerous times because you and I have been doing shows together for 20 years. I'm a sucker for the Olympics, man.
Right.
I love the Olympics. And so I can't wait for a month. I think it's 32 days away.
Yep. Not a shot, David. I'm not saying by any means that Canada
No,
should have
that's
had
not
the
a
U.S.
shot.
I'm just saying I was in Canada.
Yeah, right.
And it wasn't on Canadian TV. So
No, right.
wouldn't have been able to watch
Gosh,
that.
no. Why would they? No, that would be silly. Just like
Exactly.
they're not showing the Canadian trials in the United States, to my knowledge. I'm sure you could find them if you wanted to.
Fill in the blank. Chicago Cubs great Ryne Sandberg got his statue outside Wrigley Field this weekend, and the statue is blank.
Long overdue, but I understand why they did it now. It's the 40th anniversary, literally yesterday, of the Sandberg game, and so it made a lot of sense. A lot of his teammates were in town this weekend for it, and of course, on the field, the Cubs blew it because that's what they do. But the statue itself, I watched a very short little documentary of the statue. There's a lot of really cool little bits and pieces about the statue, which I thought were really cool. He wanted to make sure he had the glasses, the flip down
like
shades.
the flip shades? Okay.
Yeah, those are on there. And then I guess when you win a gold glove, when you get your new glove, there's a gold, like you remember back in the day when we had baseball gloves and it had not just the logo of the brand of the glove that you had, but it was almost like a patch. Like it was like a fabric-y patch. It was like sewn on there.
Yeah.
Well, apparently when you
like
win
the
a gold
Red
glove,
Rawlings or whatever.
but it's like it's Red Rawlings, but it's like a patch that's sewn on there. Like it's a white patch with Red Rawlings on it.
Okay.
They make that gold. So if you want a gold glove, you get a gold patch with the Red Rawlings on there. And so on the statue itself is a gold patch.
Oh, nice.
With the Red Rawlings on
Maybe
there.
that's why, because like I saw the statue, and most statues, it seems like if it's a pitcher, obviously, it's going to be of the guy in a pitching motion.
Yep.
Pretty much anyone else, if you're not a pitcher, it seems like the statue is you in some kind of batting, whether it's swinging or in a batting stance or whatever. Sandberg's was a defensive,
like he's getting ready to defend, yes,
with the glove on, and that's so that's why it was very unique, is what I was going to say. Because of the fact that they didn't show him with a bat in his hand, they showed him in a defensive stance.
That was his decision. He wanted it to be of him playing defense. He said defense was my calling card. He goes, that's what I wanted my statue to be. I wanted so he modeled for it and everything. Like at 64 years old, he modeled for the statue like in his defensive ready position. And they took a bunch of pictures of him and all that. And he still has the glove from the 84 season that he gave to the statue creator to like model it after. So it's pretty cool.
So Father David is hanging out here, and this is the point in the show that I've teased at the start of the show. Spent some time Niagara Falls on vacation last week, and like I said, we stayed on the Canadian side. There's U.S. Niagara Falls, Canadian Niagara Falls, and I had never been there before. My wife had never been there either. So we had, generally we had a pretty good time, but it was a unique experience staying in Canada.
Okay. I need to hear why this was.
Did you, when you said you went to a Toronto Blue Jays game?
Yes, this is true.
For example. So you spent at least a little bit of time in Canada.
Yep.
The one thing, like the Niagara Falls, between Niagara Falls and we did go to a Toronto Blue Jays game. We saw the Blue Jays play the Red Sox last week. I guess it was last Tuesday. So a lot of walking around. What struck me about Canadians is like walking. If you're walking and a Canadian is walking right at, it's like a game of chicken. Like these guys are playing a game of chicken with you. They will not move. They will just come straight at you. They will not move. They will not get out of the way. Like you have to be the one to move. They will not say, excuse me. None of that stuff. There is none of the general courtesy. It's like I said, it's like a game of chicken every time you're walking at a Canadian. That was the thing that struck me the most.
Are you rocking shoulders with people? Like, are you running into people?
No, I would always move.
Okay.
I was always the one moving.
Okay, so they knew that here comes an American, and we know we can move out of his spot.
I don't know. Father David says Toronto's its own world. The rest of the country is not like that. I don't know.
I mean,
it was very.
That's your experience, though. So
that was the experience that we had. Yes,
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
but God, that's 15 years ago. I have trouble remembering what I had for lunch yesterday.
Yeah.
So
we stayed in what we thought was going to be an Airbnb. My wife booked it on Airbnb, and like they advertised this as it's like these lofts. And it's a converted, like an old warehouse, and they've turned,
boy.
It's going to be, we get there. Guess what it turns out to be?
A hotel.
A hotel. Not an Airbnb. And my wife was even like interacting with the person about, getting the key. And I kept like, how do we get the key? Because we'd never stayed in an Airbnb before. Like,
okay.
Get the key? And well, you get there and you go in and you go in the building actually. Yeah, there's going to be somebody to give us the key.
And they're probably thinking to themselves like, "Is this person never stayed at a hotel before?"
But that's not how they advertise. It was a relatively new hotel.
Okay.
And I think
that's good at least.
They put it on Airbnb.
Okay.
To sort of market
get their name out there.
Because my wife was interacting with this person who we thought was, like renting us the place, and she was like, "Oh, there's this massage place nearby. You should go get a massage." That kind of stuff.
That's
yeah. Yeah.
But
Canadian side though, Canadian side though, very, very touristy. Like literally, like there's a lot of like casinos and stuff.
Oh, really?
On the Canadian side. Yeah. And it's like,
I didn't know that.
We were walking around and I was like, man, this like outside these, because it was like a strip and like very, touristy type between, restaurants and, whatever else. Like it had a very Vegas strip kind of feel.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I bet you since the last time I was there was 1994.
Okay.
I would imagine things have changed drastically since then. I don't remember that being the case. Now, granted, I was a kid, so that was a long time ago, but I don't remember it being the way you're describing it. I bet you it's gotten worse.
Carnival games. Yeah, that was like a lot of carnival games. God. And it is
30 years ago.
Yeah.
30.
Have you ever had an O. Henry candy bar?
I don't think so.
I don't know that I've ever, well, I should say before going back to Canada, I don't think that I had ever actually had an O. Henry.
They've got them in America, don't they?
Well, I don't know. I have not seen an O. Henry in forever in America. They used to, and if you remember, there was an episode of Seinfeld where O. Henry was part of the plot. The woman that Jerry was with, the woman who wore the bra as a top, was the O. Henry heiress. You might remember that.
I do. I remember the plot line. I don't remember
the
O. Henry part of it.
O. Henrys are everywhere in Canada. Was surprised by that because I don't think they sell them in the States anymore. If they do, it's a very select part of the States.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Did you have one? Did you eat one?
Had a couple because I don't remember seeing him in a long time. So it's like, hey, O. Henry, let's give it a shot.
O. Henry, let's go.
That's right. So we had some O. Henry candy bars. Canadian radio was very unique. It was like, had a hard time finding a station where you sort of recognize the music. And then we found this one. It was out of Hamilton. And it was very odd. It was like you'd hear like an 80s, like 80s pop song or what, like 1 minute you'd hear Madonna or Prince or whoever. So like you'd hear like a song that was a big hit from the 1980s, but then there would be like 4 songs you've never heard of before.
Canadian singers.
That's what they were. like, because if you ever used the Shazam app where you can like,
I know I have, yes.
yeah,
Not in a long
and
time, but yes.
they were Canadian artists that I've never heard. And I don't know if it's a thing because like, like if like music on the radio, you have to pay like in America, they call it ASCAP fees and stuff like that, where you have to, like pay rights, to play the music. So maybe as a Canadian radio station, they're obligated to play, like, so many Canadian artists or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, there you go. Father David, they have to play a certain amount of Canadian
Is that a
content.
real thing?
But,
oh my gosh. Wow. Interesting. Very interesting. Never heard of that before. I had no idea.
Yeah. We also, Frasier, there was not a whole lot on like TV that we recognized. So we would watch a Frasier marathon every night when we would come back to the hotel.
Frasier of all things.
There was like a channel that had Frasier on all night long. So we'd watch.
Aren't they rebooting Frasier?
They did reboot it, and kind of mixed reviews, I think.
Oh, it's already been out. Well, that tells you. Where did it come out on? Do you know?
I think Paramount is where it's streaming.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
Yeah. But we enjoyed it.
It's good. So you had your Notre Dame hat on at the baseball game.
Shamrock hat. That's right.
Well done.
That's right. That's right. But we we stayed on the Canadian side. Last thought, stayed on the Canadian side. We went back over the bridge. And when we did our tour, we did it on the U.S. side where you went down and did the boat and all that stuff. And,
you didn't do the Maid of the Mist?
We did the Maid of the Mist, but it was on the U.S. side.
I didn't know they did it on the U.S. side. Okay. Yeah.
You did the Maid of the Mist, I take it too?
When I was a kid, yeah. Maid of the Mist.
Maid of the Mist.
You got to do Maid of the Mist.
Yep. So we did you go out on the boat and they take you up and you wear your, your poncho and all that kind of stuff. But then there's like a national park on the U.S. side and, did the tour and got all the information. But that's where we found out all the Nikola Tesla stuff. They're Tesla is basically like a local Niagara Falls legend, basically. I don't know if you knew, but Tesla came over from Croatia. He goes to work for Edison, and Edison tells him, hey, you do this work for me, and I'll pay you $100,000 or whatever, because he's trying to perfect electricity and all this different stuff. So Tesla does it, and then Edison stiffs him. Doesn't give me the money. And Edison's like, oh, I was only joking. I was never going to pay you $100,000. So Tesla gets ticked off and he goes to work for George Westinghouse. And now this is where they don't teach us this in the United States, I don't think. All of the, how involved Tesla was with the electricity. Tesla, big alternating current guy. Edison, big direct current guy. And this is where the divide between Tesla and Edison came into play. Edison would literally go out in the street in the town square in Niagara Falls and, like a carnival barker, and he's discrediting Tesla. He's like, oh, he's that alternating current guy. You don't want anything to do with alternating current. Well, turns out alternating current is actually what we use in our houses today. Direct current is more like if you flip on a flashlight, that kind of thing. So, in comparison, Tesla was actually very advanced. So he goes to work for George Westinghouse. Westinghouse, of course, big name in electricity. But I never knew these three guys all hanging out in Niagara Falls, New York. They're using the waterfalls to experiment with, high level electricity and stuff like that. And that is where, they were the first ones to bring electricity to an entire city, basically using the alternating current. And then it goes from there, branched out regionally, and ultimately because of Tesla and Westinghouse, especially, that's where power in our homes came from, was because of their work in Niagara Falls. Surprised you didn't learn all that stuff when you were there, Vince.
Did not learn all that stuff because we didn't go to the American side, and apparently the American side is where you actually learn stuff.
But again, you
learn how to gamble on the
side is where we learned all this.
That's what I'm saying. So you learned it on the American side. We didn't go to the American side. We were entirely on the Canadian side with casinos and fairs, you know.
Okay.
And
so that's why you didn't. They didn't teach you about Tesla.
correct. I got
There's
no
actually-
knowledge.
There's a statue of Tesla down in that park. There's no Edison statue. There's no Westinghouse. They love some Tesla in
It's very
Niagara
interesting.
Falls.
Now, isn't Niagara
Yeah.
Falls, like Niagara Falls, United States, is near Buffalo, right? That's
Yeah.
right in that neighborhood, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Like
All
if
right,
you're
just wanna
coming
get
up on the
geography right.
east side of Lake Erie, from like driving from Cleveland, you go through Buffalo, stop
Okay.
and got some wings, by the way, and then just a few miles from Buffalo, Niagara Falls, and then the river, go across the bridge over the river, you're in Canada.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Sounds like a heck of a trip.
It was. We went up to a little bit north of the town of Niagara Falls. It's called Niagara on the Lake. It's kind of a region, but there are wineries everywhere.
Okay.
Like, if you
I know
live in
you
that
guys like a
area,
good winery.
yeah, like if you live in that area and you don't own your own winery, it's like, what are you even doing there? Basically, like everyone owned a
What are
winery
you even doing there?
in that area.
That's
yeah,
great.
we started to go to, kind of a high end tasting because my wife wanted to do the winery
Of
tastings.
course.
It was like $40 a head. And so we left that place and she's like, I don't need to spend $40 to taste 4 wines. So we found one that was half the price.
There you go.
And we did that. So that was our big wine tasting that we did.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
I saw Tommy was asking, they do helicopter rides there. We didn't do the helicopter. I'm a little,
Not a big fan of the helicopter?
after the whole Kobe Bryant thing, it's like, do I really
You're not sprinting to an AAU game.
well, no, but it's like, do I really trust a helicopter pilot at this point? No offense to
fair
the
enough.
helicopter pilots, but I'm not big on the helicopter stuff.
That's
since
fair.
then. So,
That's fair.
all right. So that's it. That's all we've got for today. That was my trip to Canada. Came away again. Like, if you go up there, do the tour on the U.S. side. Get the
Apparently
whole
you're going to be
Tesla.
educated.
Get the Tesla experience. Yes, I learned more in that
Man,
4 hours than I learned in my entire time in U.S. public schools about electricity,
impressed.
specifically Tesla. That's right.
I'm impressed. Now you're going to go buy a Tesla?
I don't think so.
No, all right. Just checking.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. Glad to be back. Great week. We're gonna have got an interview scheduled for
Okay.
tomorrow. Ryan's gonna be in with some recruiting stuff. I've got another interview lined up for tomorrow. Jesse will be in for rapid fire. He'll bring you up to date on his personal status. I'm sure. I'll let
Is
him
it
give you
Facebook
the
official?
the
Did he change
details.
it on Facebook?
Oh, it's Facebook. He's not on Facebook. His girlfriend is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You're
he's
right.
not
I
on
don't think I've ever
Facebook.
seen him on there before. I think everything I see about him comes from your wife.
That is probably it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. All right. Hit the like button before you leave. Subscribe, rate, and review. And we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.